The Afghan Connection story began in 1987 in the northwest frontier province of Pakistan, in a city called Banu, where I went as a medical student. Under the guidance of the legendary Dr. Ruth Coggan, I learned just how harsh life can be in this part of the world. Many of the women never made it to our hospital, and even those who did often came in such late and difficult stages of labour that either they or their babies died. Thanks to the skill and care of Dr. Coggan, many did survive, and I saw for myself the vital need for access to good healthcare in these regions. A few miles across the border, the Soviets were at war with Afghanistan, and hundreds of casualties were arriving every day at the International Committee for the Red Cross Hospital in Peshawar. I worked there, assisting in theatre, where skilled surgeons from all over the world gathered to operate on the war wounded, who had travelled for up to 10 days to reach the hospital. I returned as a newly qualified doctor in 1988 and was sent to live and work with the Mujahideen in a camp on the Afghan border, where I ran clinics for refugee women and children. I went back in 2001, when Afghanistan was in the grip of the Taliban. Throughout that time, since 1987, the country had been at war. Devastated by the years of Soviet invasion and ravaged by the ensuing civil war, which destroyed Kabul and brought the country to its knees, Afghanistan had been largely taken over by the Taliban and its people strangled by its cruel regime. Nothing could have prepared me for what I found. There was no infrastructure, no tarmac roads, electricity or functioning transport system. Hospitals were destroyed. Many of the doctors had fled or been killed. At one hospital we visited, the doctors were operating with needle and thread and saws they had bought from the bazaar. The Northern Alliance still held 10% of the country, and millions of people were displaced either abroad or in the refugee camps, which sprawled hopelessly across the countryside, their occupants receiving no help from the outside world. Families were split up and lost to every corner of the world. Nearly 6 million people had become refugees. I was travelling with 2 ex-army officers who had built a clinic in the Panjshir Valley in the east of Afghanistan. Our journey was treacherous. We travelled by foot, bus, jeep and helicopter to our destination. The clinic was a beacon of hope, run by the Swedish Committee for Afghanistan. I saw up to 60 women and children each day and heard their desperate stories. Despite everything, these people had such great resilience. Afghanistan and its people had taken a grip on me, and I set up Afghan Connection on my return to the UK.
As we come on air, we have serious news of a major possible air crash in the United States. A plane...
Soon after, the devastating attack on the Twin Towers took place, and Afghanistan was catapulted into the news. Our work started with health, and we tackled the main children's hospital in Kabul as our initial project. Despite the arrival of thousands of aid organisations and millions of US dollars in the capital, this hospital was a neglected place in atrocious condition. We refurbished wards and sent out equipment and provided medical training. Other hospitals and clinics followed in more rural parts of the country. We supported vaccination programs in Badakhshan, which has one of the highest child mortality rates in the world. With a firm belief that progress in Afghanistan would be dependent on education, we expanded our work and started to build schools. I have been humbled by children who walk for up to 3 hours to go to such schools. So determined are they to have an education and to change their future. Our work is now concentrated in Warsaj, northeast Afghanistan. Education in Afghanistan has been a great success story, yet still the standards of education can be poor, and half of all schools have no buildings. In a region where barely a single adult woman can read or write, there is a huge desire to educate the children. In schools which exist but have little or no facilities, we build classrooms and resource centres with science laboratories, libraries and computer suites. The villagers provide the land for the schools and contribute their labour for free, thus giving the communities ownership of these schools. To ensure access to an education for all children, we provide community-based schooling for nearly 1,000 children who live too far from the nearest schools. We train up to 200 teachers every year. Bibi Aisha is our flagship school for 1,100 girls and was the first school we built in Worsage. It now competes with the best of Afghanistan's schools, and up to 30 girls each year go on to further education. We are honoured to support these girls who place such value on their education and are determined to serve their country as the doctors, teachers and leaders of the future.